In all frames, there are going to be some areas that are more interesting or more important than other areas, and we call those parts the positive space. The rest, the unformed areas, the areas that are lacking in detail or blurred, we call those parts the negative space. Just because we call it negative space, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. If we start to play with the balance between the positive and the negative space, we can get some really interesting results. Even in a close-up like this, there's still some negative space because my head is round and I'm in a rectangular frame. So in a sense, there's negative space in every frame. But if we intentionally exaggerate the negative parts of the frame, we can really start to change the mood or the atmosphere of our images. Take, for example, the iconic lighthouse here at Burnham-on-Sea. The way that we frame it can have a dramatic impact on the mood of the scene. For example, if we take a shot in as tight as we can go, then we emphasize the structure and the shape of the object itself. Now, if we give the subject a little more breathing space, either by zooming out or moving away from it, and then try another shot, this time by framing it against the vast expanse of sand, sea and sky, we instead get a sense of the loneliness, the isolation of the subject. Even on a bright sunny day, the scene suddenly starts to feel a bit more sombre and reflective. When it comes to experimenting with the balance between positive and negative space, framing and your lens's focal length play a big part. So we can play around with our composition by moving the subject around to different corners of the frame, zooming in or out as we go. As for cameras and gear, there are no rules here, but a tripod does come in handy anytime you need to perfect your composition. There are other ways to emphasize negative space too, such as blurring out portions of the frame. This works well if you include out-of-focus objects or surfaces that are close to the camera, with the in-focus subject off in the distance. Here, I'm shooting very low to the sand to emphasize the blur in the foreground. Lens blur isn't the only type of blur worth considering. What about motion blur? By using a neutral density filter, we can lengthen our exposure to several seconds or more, resulting in motion blur in the clouds and water. Not only does this smooth out the details, it also suggests the passing of time. Another option that lets you emphasize negative space is the classic frames within frames compositional device, where we find an angle that uses a foreground object to surround the subject. Here, the lighthouse becomes part of the negative space, its blurred legs framing the dog in the distance. Differences in light can also help to create expanses of negative space. At sunset, the lighthouse makes for a strong silhouette, while the fading light results in moody dark negative space across the beach and the sky. So, there we have it. Next time you're out, think positively about negative space in your own photos.